Hebrews in Genesis ultimately begins with the creation of Adam and his being moved to the Garden of Eden. Adam was not a Hebrew, but human social groups tend to compound the creation of humanity with the ethnogenesis of their own group. In verses 8 and 10 through 14, we read a description of the location of Eden. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted, and became into four heads. The name of the first is Pison, that is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium and onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is it which goeth towards the east of Assyria. And the fourth is Euphrates. The book Eden, the Biblical Garden Discovered in East Africa by Gert Mueller, Pomegranate Publishing, 2013, explains that this four-river system is a reference to certain of the Nile tributaries in central eastern Sudan and Ethiopia. Havilah, in the Table of Nations, Genesis 10, is a son of Cush, the Hebrew equivalent of Ethiopia. This implies that Havilah was in the region of Cush or Ethiopia. Evidence is also presented from the Table of Nations to show another Ashur, translated in Genesis 2, King James Version, as Assyrian, in the part of Arabia opposite Ethiopia. Many of the biblical names in that part of Arabia, provided in the Table of Nations, also occur on the other side of the Red Sea in Ethiopia. It makes it quite possible the Hebrews thought there was an Ashur in Ethiopia as well. The Euphrates, in ancient times, was said to have its source in Ethiopia. The names Hiddekel, Tigris, and Parat, Euphrates, in Hebrew, are indicative of descriptive qualities of rapid and fruitful, respectively. These descriptions happen to match the Tikis and Gash rivers of Ethiopia, which form a fertile plain like Mesopotamia. Even medieval rabbis thought that Eden was located in Ethiopia, as we are about to see. According to Genesis, humanity only spread out over the earth after the flood. Before this, the 9 generations after Adam lived in Eden, the area the garden was located. After the first couple were expelled from the garden, they lived in this area. The book of Jasher was written by a Jewish rabbi in the medieval period and purports to be the ancient book of Jasher referred to in the Old Testament. It claims that in the days before Noah, God sent a flood to the antediluvian people to warn them of their wicked ways. Jash 2:6. And the Lord caused the waters of the river Gihon to overwhelm them, and he destroyed and consumed them, and he destroyed the third part of the earth, and notwithstanding this, the sons of men did not turn from their evil ways, and their hands were yet extended to do evil in the sight of the Lord. The Gihon, as stated in Genesis, was the river that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. The word earth in Hebrew is eretz. It can mean the whole earth, ground, region, or inhabitants. The only way a third of the inhabitants of the earth could have been killed by Gihon flooding is if all of humanity was imagined to have lived by that river. If they meant a third of the region of Eden, then it must have been located in the neighborhood of Cush. Either way, it makes all biblical figures from Adam to Noah East Africans. The Shemites. Noah's children, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, were East Africans. The descendants of Shem moved to West Africa, while the descendants of Japheth moved to the vast region of Eurasia. In Eurasia, the black Japhethites turned white. This probably happened by giving birth to white babies with straight hair. These babies were not albinos. Although it is rare, this still happens amongst sub-Saharan Africans to this day. The Shemites became the aboriginal West Asians, like the Elamites and the Black Syrians. Nimrod, the son of Cush, followed the Shemites to West Asia and set up camp in southern Mesopotamia. See the Black Summer trilogy. Later, the Japhethites moved from Eurasia to this region. This led to a gradual whitening of the West Asians during antiquity. From Shem also came Eber, the father of Joktan. The latter was the father of the aboriginal people of Arabia, who can still be found in parts of central, southern, and eastern Arabia, speaking southern Semitic languages like Miri and Shahari. They are obvious black descent today, as seems evident from their pictures, with hair resembling that of first Australians. This strongly suggests Joktan, Eber, and Shem were supposed to be black in the mind of the original authors of Genesis. Abraham's descendants. Abraham was descended from Shem and Eber, which strongly suggests that he too was black, according to the story. His grandson Jacob used stones for pillars, suggesting that his hair was thick and afro enough to form a comfortable cushion between his scalp and the rocks. Jacob's son Joseph was mistaken for an Egyptian African by the rest of Jacob's family after being sold into slavery in his youth. Jacob's distant descendant was Moses, who was also mistaken for an Egyptian in Midian. Moses had his hand turned white as part of an impressive miracle. Turning type 6 skin into type 1 skin would be the most impressive miracle. This strongly suggests Moses had a complexion like Naomi Campbell's. The logic of the Hebrew Levitical laws excludes types 1 through 4 from the general complexion range. The Nazarites were described as red, like earth, clearly a dark red, which came to approximate a coal black as a result of famine. This is clearly a case of starvation-induced hyperpigmentation. Skin types 5 and 6 are more susceptible to this condition, and only type 6 could produce a complexion that approximates coal. Other Old Testament figures like Job also complained of disease-induced hyperpigmentation. David and Solomon were described as the same red, like earth, as the Nazarites. All of this tells us that the ancient Hebrews of the Old Testament were a black people like other aboriginal peoples of West Asia. It gives credibility to the many paintings of Black Christ and Madonna that can be found in the oldest churches of Europe and Asia Minor. It also places in context some of the images found in early medieval synagogues in West Asia and Europe. When we consider the geographical context of Israel in relation to Africa and Europe, there is nothing surprising about this.